Hey, this is part 2 of my podcast with my buddy Clay Jostes. He's running for county judge in Live Oak County. Primary election is in March 2022. And in this podcast, we talk a little bit about what he would like to do when he's county judge. Have a listen.
You're listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.
All right, man. So last time we sat together and had a conversation, we talked about you running for county judge and a little bit about your back history and some personal things about you. But what are some of the platforms you're running on?
Hey, so thanks for having me back for a third time.
Absolutely, man.
No, I appreciate it. It gives me an opportunity to not only talk to you, which I love, but talk to hopefully my constituents in Live Oak County, let them know why I'm running and what I hope to accomplish as county judge. So, as we talked about briefly in the last podcast, kind of what kickstarted this whole deal for me going down the path of running for county judge was it all started the night that I did the border forum in George West and just bringing some information to the folks in Live Oak County of what was going on, and that's kind of what kickstarted this whole deal for me. So I've listened to a lot of folks in Live Oak County. That was all the buzz that was going on for weeks, months, since Biden got elected and the border became such a big deal. Was safety and security in Live Oak County. Yeah. Became the kind of the topic that just couldn't leave people's lips, right? It was a constant barrage of our text message system, our county alert system going off and letting people know where bailouts were going on and what was happening in the county,
there was a lot on social media too, yeah.
Ton on social media. It was everywhere. I learned so much putting that event together, and then I learned a lot after that event took place, and so many folks asked me to run for county judge, and so one of the pillars of my campaign is I guess what I'm calling law and order or safety and security of Live Oak County, because if it's important to the citizens of Live Oak County, it's important to me, and of course it's important to me because it directly impacted me and my family when they went through our property. So again, we talked about that, and I'm not going to dwell on that subject, but it's one of the key things that I want to ensure the folks in Live Oak County that will be at the forefront of what I would do as county judge would be ensuring the safety and security of every person in Live Oak County. If you reside in the county, your safety, your security, your well-being is paramount to me, right? So, where I think the county judge role is impactful in that world is, a big chunk of what the county judge does is setting budgets and allotting money to certain line items in the budget, right? So, where I think the county judge can be an impact is ensuring that our local law enforcement is properly funded and making sure that we're also properly working with our state and federal law enforcement, so that we kind of create that blanket of security or invisible fence, so to speak, in Live Oak County, so that folks don't want to, the coyotes that are running through, folks that are attempting to break the law, would rather go to somewhere else than come through Live Oak County.
Right. And
I think there are some creative ways that we can work within that realm of funding. So, hey, I'm a little bit biased because I'm also a helicopter pilot, and I have family that's helicopter pilots. But some of the times that we've been successful in apprehending illegal aliens from a bailout when they jump out of the vehicle, whatever they're in, truck, van, car, whatever, when they go through fences and end up in the brush, and when they bail out of the vehicle, in some of the instances where we've been successful in apprehending them is when we've had the use of a helicopter. So,
especially down in that part of the country. I mean, there's so much brush country and so many places for people to run off to and hide, and being able to have that in the toolbox, the law enforcement toolbox, to be able to, locate these guys and have law enforcement go over there and is got to be critical in catching these people.
It's huge because you know what I mean. Our law enforcement's at a disadvantage, right? Because they're a lot of times they're not running through the brush with their county vehicles because putting their lives in danger. So the folks that they're running from are running through the brush. You can't, helicopter doesn't matter whether you're running through the brush, you're above it anyway.
Yeah.
But so what it gives you the advantage when you're alerted early enough. It gives you the advantage that you can literally be on top of the scene as it's taking place, and be the eyes for law enforcement that aren't necessarily there right then. So I think there's some creative ways where we can enable the public to participate in the apprehension of some of these folks. Because you know what? There are a lot of people that want to participate, and I don't want them to participate in a way that it hinders law enforcement. You need to be...
even puts them in danger.
Right. Absolutely not. I'm not advocating that citizens become, vigilante, law enforcement. I'm not advocating that at all, because that you actually could be making the situation worse. I'm not advocating that at all, but I think there are some ways that we could partner with law enforcement. The average citizen could partner with law enforcement by being eyes for them, to alert them of where that activity or where the bailouts are taking place, and being able to alert give folks that want to have or want to lend a hand in apprehending those folks like me. And I've been fortunate to have been called out multiple times to help law enforcement look for people that have bailed out, and I know my family members have also that also fly have done the same thing and have been successful in helping apprehend folks. So I think if we could work within our budget to make that more commonplace than what it is now. So hey, we're only getting called out when the officer that's in pursuit thinks about it, which is fine too. I mean, I know that when you're in a high speed pursuit, the last thing you're thinking of, who's am I going to call? While I'm driving 100 down this dirt road. That's not that's probably not what's on your mind. But if folks that had the ability to truly assist the law enforcement were alerted early enough before they have already bailed out of the vehicle, if they're alerted early enough to be on scene, I think the idea is to create a deterrent, right? So if coyotes, or word travels fast in that world, if they know that Live Oak County is willing to scramble a helicopter to chase you, you know what? They're going to go somewhere else.
Yeah.
And that's what matters to me, right? The kind of like Trump's, America First policy. Well, it's a similar deal. It's Live Oak County first. I care about the people of Live Oak County more than I care about the surrounding counties, because this is where I live and these are the people that I'm accountable to. So if I can create a deterrent to come through Live Oak County, that's the deterrent I want to create. And if we catch a ton of people in the process, that's all the better, right? Because they're putting people in harm's way when they come through the county, and they're running their illegal activity through our county. They're putting people in harm's way, and that's what I want to stop.
I would imagine it's kind of hard to get to a point where, it takes a lot of work from elected officials and law enforcement and people of the community. But when you can get to a point where people who are doing wrong automatically associate your little part of the world with something that they don't want to mess with, as far as driving through or doing illegal activity through, or, even if it's selling drugs or doing whatever they're doing illegal, when they know that it's difficult or they know that they're going to be pursued harder than they are in other places, they tend to stay out of your area. And I think once that gets established in a county or a city or even a state for that matter, it's the ultimate safety valve. It's the ultimate safety and the ultimate deterrent is when people know to begin with, they don't want to go through that area. So that's critical.
Yeah, it's the old adage. It's peace through strength, right?
Yeah.
If you show that you're strong, they're not going to try you.
Yeah.
And I guess I've also drawn the analogy. Let's treat it like a military exercise, right? Let's quit letting them take the fight to us, and let's dictate the fight to them, right? And funnel them into places that we want them funneled to, right? And it helps law enforcement because you're funneling them away from a larger area into spots where you want them to be, so they're more easily apprehended. It almost makes so much sense. It's ridiculous, right?
Yeah.
I can't see why it's not being done in more places. So safety and security being paramount, and there's ways to fund that, and there's ways to pay for that, so that we can ensure that they go elsewhere. I don't want them to come to Live Oak County. I'd rather our rural, peaceful county remain that way. And we, you know what, we're the text message system that we have in place just becomes, quiet, just whisper quiet, because or they're having to tell us about, hey, they're sending out a text message to tell us that jury duty's off, as opposed to, hey, we have a bailout.
Sure.
That's the ideal.
Yeah.
So
how are things currently? What's the landscape like down there currently? I think I was following one of the pages. I think it's a Facebook page. But you talking about people wanting to get involved and be participants in that kind of stuff. And I see people asking questions on there pretty regularly. So that goes to show that, people do want to be a part of the security of where they live. They want to be a part of that. They want to, be on the team of the group that's doing the deterring, but how has it been here lately compared to what it was early in the year?
I would say that desire's probably fallen off a bit, but I think it's because there hasn't been a ton of push or a ton of drive from the top to help create that. So it kind of created a bit of a disincentive to participate. But folks want to be a part of the solution. Nobody wants to be just a bystander. And when they see the problem at the level that it is, nobody wants to be just an innocent bystander. We live in a gritty community full of people that want to be a part of the solution, and that's one of the things I love about Live Oak County. The people in Live Oak County that are willing to follow if somebody will lead. And they're a gritty group of folks that will get the job done, right? So I want to lead that charge to enable the citizens of Live Oak County to participate in the solution, because I think that's exactly what they want to do. They want to be a participant in the solution, and I want to give them that opportunity to do that, because I think if we all came together, only good things can come out of that.
It's important, right? I guess, for people like you and other law enforcement and elected officials to keep people informed. I know that the text messages and the Facebook pages have helped with that. I don't know who's been putting those together, but having information and being able to pass that to your fellow people in the community quickly is important. So
right. So the text message system is run through the county, through the sheriff's department. So they're putting that together. I know that there's been a drop off in the number of text messages, and I don't know if that's a coincidence or, hey, we don't have as many folks bailing or running through the county right now. We're not seeing them, chasing them, finding them, or the numbers just lower. But it's also up to the deputy that's on site, that's in pursuit, to he or she's got to have the time to put that text message together, because they send that to dispatch.
So that's who's doing it.
So it's the deputy that's in pursuit or involved in that chase that's actually putting that text message together, and then it's going to dispatch, and dispatch sends it out. So, gotcha. Hey, if they're in a pursuit, the last thing you want them to do is pull over to send a text message. I get that, yeah. Right? Yeah, they need to keep their eyes on the ball, right, and keep going.
Yeah. One thing that I think's interesting is a lot of times, I guess when you see that falling off, or you hear about fewer bailouts, a lot of people kind of take that as, hey, things are getting better, and it can be a reflection of that. But at the same time, everybody who lives down there knows this is a reoccurring issue, and it's not that it's. Granted, it got really bad here recently in the last year, but it's something that you live with that when you live down there. That's part of it, and so being able to have something like that, a text messaging system or whatever else people can come up with and develop, is something that's going to be critical and get used forever, because we're always going to have that problem down south.
Yeah, even if it's not a bailout situation, the text message system is just whoever came up with doing it. Hey, hats off to them, because it's a great system to inform the public of what's going on. Because if something's going on in your area, you want to know whether it's a bailout or a tornado or whatever the situation may be.
It's a little more efficient than the horn, huh?
Yeah. So yeah, because where I live, that horn doesn't help too terribly much, and probably for the bulk of Live Oak County.
Well, nobody knows what that is for anymore. So
no. So the text message system has been a game changer in informing the general public of what's going on, and it's been a help. Now, maybe all of law enforcement doesn't necessarily feel that way, because before it was all still going on, 2 years ago, but people didn't realize the magnitude of what was going on. So now maybe law enforcement gets a lot more questions about what's going on, but more information is always going to be a better situation to be in than less, right? I mean, I'd rather the public know what the severity of a situation is over not. I mean, I'd rather more information, transparent information being spread around than people's imaginations being able to run wild. Because you heard a rumor that there was a bailout, as opposed to knowing the facts of what actually happened, because it came from the officer on the scene, right? So that's more accurate information than third hand through a fifth cousin.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this also. You always hear about, and you hear about it on the national level, but I guess law enforcement entities not communicating. Do they communicate pretty well down south as far as the city and county and state?
So we talked a little bit about that during the forum, and I think there's been a renewed sense of helpfulness between the law enforcement agencies, because I think all of them realized nobody could do it by themselves. Border Patrol can't do it without DPS. DPS can't do it without the county deputies, and same way with inside the city police department. Nobody can do it by themselves. It's too big of a problem to tackle on your own. So I think there's been a new sense of teamwork there between all those, and it's really encouraging to see those guys work hand in hand. Because they're right. You cannot. No one agency can do that on their own and be successful at it. You may have spots of success, but if you're truly going to win that battle, you've got to work collectively as a law enforcement group. And I think the citizens of not just Live Oak County, but every spot along the border and coming north, they all have a part to play too. And I think the general environment and the feeling of what's going on is enough's enough.
Yeah. Right.
And so people want to be a part of the solution, but it takes somebody to lead that charge, to make sure it's done sensibly, right? Because like I said earlier, you do not want to get in the way of law enforcement doing their job. That's the last thing I would want, is to have Sheriff Busby come to me and say, "Hey, you got to stop, because this is you're hurting efforts more than helping."
Sure.
And that's when you'd have to take a step back and reassess how you're helping them. But I think the citizens have a part to play, and I want to give them that opportunity.
And how is, as far as funding goes for all this kind of stuff, if there's something that needs to get implemented, or there needs to be something that needs to be added to, how does it go? How do you go about getting funding for stuff like that? I mean, not to get into the weeds with it, but
no. So I mean, and yeah, we don't have to dig too far in the weeds, but it would be a matter of one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that the county judge plays is in budget structure. So creating line items in the budget for helicopter search and location efforts. And then, hey, I want to kind of promote a gentleman that's working within the county. I won't say his name because he may or may not want the publicity, but...
And I wish you would say his name. No, don't say it. Don't say it.
He's a great guy, and if he listens to this podcast, he'll know exactly who he is when I say it. But he's working to create something very similar to what the George West and Three River schools have the education foundation, but he's trying to create a law enforcement foundation, be a 501c3 that people can contribute to and contribute to tax free.
Oh wow!
To help. Because it's the small stuff. It's like spike strips. It's trainings. It's things like that are law enforcement agencies may not have in their budgets to pay for. Because even with things like spike strips, well, they're not expensive, but in order to carry them and use them, you have to go to like a full day training course. So that means there's a sheriff deputy off patrol that day. You have to pay for him to go take that training course. And so it just kind of, some of the cost of those tools snowball on an agency or a department that is already restrained for resources anyway. So this gentleman has been a friend of the sheriff's department in Live Oak County for a while. He's helped them in a number of ways, and he's not a member of the department, but he's working hard to get that 501 set up so that he can start contributing monetarily to the efforts to help combat what's going on at the border by equipping our law enforcement here with the tools that they need to effectively do their job. So not only can we do it from a county, taxpayer funded line items in the budget, but I think private citizens, and it goes to show you that private citizens want to be a part of the solution because he's coming up with ideas privately to help fund the apprehension of folks, and
that allows anybody to contribute, correct?
Absolutely, they can be a member or a citizen of Live Oak County or somebody outside of Live Oak County that just cares about border, or it doesn't have to necessarily be border concerns. It could be anything. The equipment and the training is universal. It doesn't have to be for that specific that particular crime. So
I'm glad you said that because. I haven't, like I told you earlier, we're chit-chatting. I've been out of George West longer than I've been in George West. But to me, that's where I'm from, right? That's my home. So when I hear of something that I can do to help contribute to make it, because my parents are there, my sister's there, my brother's there, I have friends that I love that are down there and so that would give somebody like me an opportunity to say, hey, I can still contribute to the benefit of my area where I come from. So I think that's awesome, man. That's great news.
It's my hats off to him for again, he's putting that initiative together because he saw the need, right?
Yeah.
So citizens are concerned and want to be a part of the solution. So I hope to lead those efforts and working with our local law enforcement and state and federal law enforcement, because all those folks want to do their job too, right? Morale's low in the Border Patrol and not so much in the DPS, but morale's low in the federal agencies because their hands are tied. They're not being allowed the opportunity to do the job they signed up for.
I think it's clear that morale's low. I think people can see that when they watch the news. And it's scary because when you can see that visually just by watching, your Channel 6 news or whatever you're watching, that trickles down to the resident. When they feel that, not necessarily that they don't have confidence in something, but when they feel that, morale's low in an entity that they trust, they get concerned. So that's huge to build that up.
And who do you think it inspires? Right?
The bad guys.
That's right. The bad guys are inspired by that low morale, right? And so we've got to do something to change that.
Man, I like that a lot. So, Mystery Man, thank you so much because that's pretty intelligent and pretty clever.
No, hey, I hope, because I didn't ask his permission to talk about this before this podcast, so I don't really want to, put him on blast. But he's a great guy, and he's trying to do a good thing for Live Oak County.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, we talked a little bit earlier, and one thing that we talked about was you as a person and your personality. And from what I know of you and people that I trust that know you, because we're friends and we have mutual friends, you, to me, in my opinion, you are exactly what Live Oak County needs in this position. And I'm not saying that just because we're friends. I'm saying that because, like I mentioned earlier, I think what makes you perfect for the position is kind of what doesn't make you the ideal politician, right? So you're a highly intelligent guy. You're very conservative with a lot of things, and you got a serious nature to you at times. You got a playful nature too, but it doesn't always convey, right? It doesn't always come out. And when I run into people back home, they know that I'm an idiot because I put myself out there as an idiot. But you're a highly intelligent guy and very serious at times. And I think the position that you're running for is one that you're perfect for because of your personality. So I think that running for you may be difficult just because there's not a whole lot of peacocking. You're a pretty conservative guy, but man, I tell you what, when it comes to like the economics and all that good stuff that's required down there, I think you're ideal for that position.
Well, so you probably see me squirming in my chair because it's even uncomfortable just like hearing people.
I was waiting for you to get watery-eyed. It never happened.
It's sometimes it's even uncomfortable hearing somebody kind of pat you on the back because you're right. It's not my personality. I'm not a showy guy. I mean, I wasn't necessarily blessed with the gift of gab. And you're right. So, and I'm not a politician. So sometimes it comes. I know enough about me to know that sometimes it comes across. I don't necessarily come across as the overly cheery guy, but yes, I've got a kind of a dark sense of humor. It's
That's what I find appealing.
But yeah, so I've always been involved in politics. I never thought I'd be a politician, and I'm not a politician. I'll just make that clear to the audience now. I'm not a politician. I'm probably not always going to say the things that you want to hear, but you'll never hear untruths coming from my mouth, right? So I've always aspired to be somebody to tell you the truth, and sometimes maybe it's the engineer in me that maybe more blunt, maybe more bluntly than it should be sometimes. But sugarcoating has never been an easy thing for me to do. But I am a fiscally conservative and individual. Hey, I couldn't have got to where I was just coming through school without having to pinch every penny, right?
Yeah.
I mean that, and I would do, and I've done the same. I guess that mindset is carried over into everything I've done professionally. Every budget I've had to take care of, every penny was accounted for because it was never my money, right? So every project I've been involved in that I had to create the budget for or spend those dollars, I knew they weren't my dollars. They weren't my dollars to spend. They were somebody's dollars. When I worked in the private industry, it was yes, it was the company's money, but really, even if you go take that back a step further, it's the shareholders' money, and they are entrusting you to spend every dollar, not like it was yours. Because that's a mistake. You shouldn't spend the money like it's yours. You need to spend it like it's theirs, right? Because it is, and that's the way. That would be the exact same mindset I would bring into the county judge spot for running the county's businesses, knowing that the money that comes in through tax revenue is not the county's money. It belongs to the people that wrote those checks,
Sure.
right? It's the citizens of Live Oak County. It's their money, and they've entrusted, the person they elect when they elect me into as Live Oak County judge, they're entrusting you to spend that money fiscally sound, right? So I've always been a fiscally responsible individual in everything I've done, almost to the point where I squeak when I walk, right?
Sure.
I'm a tight individual, and I expect, in every project I've done, I've always expected the folks that worked with me to be fiscally responsible too, and have that oversight over them to make sure that we're spending that money wisely always, because somebody else that money came out of somebody else's pocket to, well, again, in private industry, to fund that project, but somebody else is that money's coming out of somebody else's pocket to fund our county government, and it should be treated with reverence. I mean, you need to treat every dollar that comes in with the respect that it deserves. So
yeah, there's a guy I like listening to and watching. I don't know if you may have seen him, or his name's Jocko, but Jocko has a phrase that he says, and it irritates me a little bit because you and I are very different in a lot of ways. Where you're fiscally responsible, I'll go buy a whole bunch of ammo. But Jocko always says there's freedom and discipline. And, when you can be responsible with money, and that allows you to take whatever those funds are and allocate them to somewhere else. And ultimately, the goal is to provide a pleasant living environment without breaking the people who are funding it. Right. And so by being fiscally responsible, like you're saying, that's critical, because in a place like George West, where, we talked about a little bit earlier, but, to get into economics, it's a place that you want to be able to have amenities for the community, the people that live there. You want them to have things that they don't have to drive to another city for, or they don't have to go to San Antonio for, or Beeville or Pleasanton or whatever. That you can provide those kinds of things in that place without making it California, where you can't afford to live there.
Right.
So that's where being fiscally conservative is important.
Well, I'm a big fan of Jocko Willink as well, and his discipline equals freedom mantra, because just like you said, in order to be able to afford the creature features in government, the things that you can do to make life better, you have to know that you spent those first dollars responsibly with, we'll call it, I hate using the word infrastructure because that seems to be a liberal term, but I mean, with fixing roads and fixing the things that municipalities and the folks of the citizens of Live Oak County have paid for with their taxes, you have to spend those priority $1 responsibly, so that you have money left over to do the priority 3, 4, and 5 things, and the things that people that make things nice to live in the county. And if you don't spend those first dollars responsibly, you'll never have those last dollars, and
right.
you'll live in a county that's run down.
Yeah.
And that doesn't invite economic activity in the future, right? So if we're going to move the county forward economically, it's got to be in a way that invites business to want to participate in Live Oak County, right? So I feel strongly that we even touched on this just briefly in the last podcast, but Live Oak County is situated beautifully, right? I mean, other counties around us, I feel, are out competing us for jobs, and there's no reason why that should be the case, because I feel like the citizens of our citizens of Live Oak County have more to offer than some of the citizens in our surrounding counties. We've got some of the best schools in South Texas, some of the greatest people in South Texas, and yet our economic activity is not on par with surrounding areas. And I think, and that comes through, I don't know that we've created the right environment to bring that in. So, we need some tax reform, and we need some structural reform to help invite those businesses to come and participate in Live Oak County, which in turn increases our revenue, sure. Right? So we can do some things to make our county more inviting to those in the area to want to come do business in Live Oak County, because we sit in a great spot. Geographically, I'm talking about geographically, we sit in a great spot, and we have some of the best people that we could employ to do those jobs right here in Live Oak County, and they don't have to be like what I was. So when I left Live Oak County to go to college, I didn't come right back to Live Oak County when college was over, because there wasn't a job for a mechanical engineer in Live Oak County. So that left me with very little choice but to, hey, I was living in Houston at the time, right? I would have loved to have come right back to Live Oak County, but there that really wasn't an option. But I want to create an environment where for those that leave and go to college or go to trade school, there's economic activity in Live Oak County that can bring you right back if that's what you choose to do. And I don't see where that would where those two things conflict. I mean, we can grow smartly without sacrificing what I love about living in Live Oak County is the rural small town feel. We don't have those two things don't have to be at odds with each other. We can grow over time. It doesn't have to be overnight. Boom, we have an Amazon distribution center in Live Oak County. Yeah. I'm not saying that, right? I'm just saying we can grow smart over time to give folks the choices of staying in Live Oak County or going off to the bigger city. I think folks, where I have an advantage over others is that I lived elsewhere and I gained a ton of skills, knowledge, expertise that I'm bringing back to Live Oak County, and I'm able to use those skills to benefit the county, the place that I call home, and I don't want to leave. I moved back to Live Oak County on purpose. It wasn't just by happenstance. I moved back because this is where I wanted to raise a family. I didn't want to raise a family in Houston or Dallas. I turned down promotions to go to those cities and left a job because I didn't want to be there. I wanted to be in Live Oak County. I wanted to be where I call home. And where my wife calls home, and raise my kids in the same way that I was raised. So that's attractive to a ton of people, and I want to give people, through economic activity, give people the option to have a job right here at home. So that's.
We touched on it earlier a little bit when we were talking just on the side. But, my sister Barbara would always make fun of me because she always told me how she says, you're the only person trying to move back to George West. And I really wanted to stay in there. I really want to stay in George West. It was what I knew. It was my area. It was my community. It was where I grew up. My friends and my family were there. And I'll be honest with you, I went to B County for drafting. And at the time, there was nothing to find work-wise in George West. I went to go work at the jail, and right after high school, and started taking some classes, and then I moved on, and I always was trying to come back to Live Oak County. I think I lived in the Valley for a little while. I lived in Corpus doing some drafting jobs, and yet I would always look for work in the area. And granted, there's some decent jobs there at the refinery and at some of the prisons, the federal prison especially is a pretty good place to work. I have a brother and some friends that have worked there for a while, but to do something that was part of the degree plan that I was pursuing, there was nothing there for me, So things like that, I wish there would have been available. And so as an older person, I wish those things were available. I hope in the near future those things are available to people who want to live in George West, because I hate seeing good quality people, or Live Oak County. I hate seeing quality people leaving Live Oak County for bigger cities, when they could bring their talents back to Live Oak County and, pursue a career there, start some businesses there. To me, that's always huge, and I've always wanted to see that for Live Oak County.
No, I want to see the same thing, and I guarantee you there are parents and grandparents that would love to see their kids and grandkids grow up.
Oh, absolutely.
And not see them grow up through Facebook. because the only time they get to see them is at Thanksgiving, Christmas, and pictures on Facebook, right? Yeah. So an increased economic activity gives more people the choice to come back home, use the skills they've learned either in college or maybe even the path that I went. I gathered skills from Texas and the rest of the world from working overseas, and I was able and I was finally able to bring those skills back home. And I want to be able to create more economic activity so that more people have those choices, not less, right? So it's, 20 years ago, I can't believe it's been that long, but 20 years ago, since when you and I were graduating college.
Don't say 20. Let's say 10.
Okay. Maybe you were on the doctorate plan.
No, it was 20, 25, something like that.
But the options were few in Live Oak County for somebody with a 4-year degree, almost in anything. Apart from going to work at the refinery, which there weren't that many open positions available. So I mean, you were competing against the rest of, let's call it Texas, for
Sure.
the few engineer spots, or the few the folks that work in the lab. So the science lab spot. I mean, you were competing against a huge number of folks for 2 positions. But so if we had a bigger variety of opportunity in the county, you would see those positions or more of those positions available for the highly technical and the tradesfolk for that, because for every technical job, there's probably multiple jobs beneath that or that support that role that could be had as well. So, and again, all of that increases the economic activity in the county. And, you build that up to a certain point. And wouldn't it be awesome if there was an HEB in Live Oak County, and you don't have to travel outside the county to Beeville or Pleasanton or Alice to go do your grocery shopping? All that can take place right inside the county, and all it takes is a start, an economic start, because all that economic activity snowballs, because you still need people that support those economic activities. So, our biggest employer in the county is the refinery by far. Probably followed by both the school systems, because they employ a lot of folks. But if we had more to offer than just those 3 options, I think more people than not would choose to stay in Live Oak County than to go somewhere else.
Yeah. It's funny because you talk about an HEB, and I get there's pharmacies in the area as well. But, even at that, my parents still drive to Beeville to get their prescriptions at pharmacies and groceries and other things like that. But, while you were just mentioning that, I was thinking about it, and you talked about having enough jobs that require like a 4-year degree, and then all the jobs underneath that support those kinds of jobs. It starts to grow, and it's kind of I don't know if it's a pyramid, but it's kind of like a pyramid. You've got all these roles that support another role, and it'd be great to see Live Oak County be able to support those who wanted to stay and be able to provide good jobs. And there's some good jobs in the area, but more good jobs, to where, guess what? Now all of a sudden your valedictorian wants to stay in the area. Your salutatorian wants to stay in the area, because there's those kinds of jobs in the area that people can get, and supporting jobs. We talked a little bit earlier about, people moving on, and I guess that's just something I get a little hung up on. I wish the economics down there were better, and because when I go home, I remember what it was like when I lived there, and I still have family there and friends, and I'd love to see that area really do well, and because it sounds a little silly, but my heart's there, I moved to San Antonio, my wife's up here, but it's like, you never feel like you're from here. I feel like I'm from Live Oak County, the mesquite trees and brush country and the Nueces River. That's Nina always makes fun of me. My wife always makes fun of me because I love anything mesquite wood, mesquite cutting boards. And she's like, what's your infatuation with mesquite wood? And I keep trying to get her to understand that's where I'm from.
Yeah.
And so I love seeing that area do well, and I would love to see it do even better.
Yeah, and I think we're just a few good decisions away from making that happen, in my opinion. Because the people of Live Oak County, or I don't feel like the county, the complexion of the county does not represent the quality of the people that are there, right? I think we can do so much to change what the county looks like to better represent the fantastic people that live inside Live Oak County.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for the oil field coming in the last 10 years, it would be in even a different state of affairs than what it is now. So I think we can do some really good things to change that.
Yeah, I'm excited. I get excited to have this conversation with you because it's weird, but just hearing you talk about it, I get visions in my head of what I could see it being, and granted, we're two different people and your vision's probably different than mine, but it's exciting because like I said, I've got family there, I've got friends there, and I'm sure they would love to have their kids come back. And I'm sure, like you mentioned earlier, having grandparents to see their grandkids, regularly, and it was always nice when I was younger because my siblings, when they had kids, the kids would grow up around the grandparents and not strangers. You come to San Antonio, your kid's going to spend probably 50 hours a week with a stranger, rather than have them around family and family members or people that love them or, good friends that they can kind of build and grow that community together with. It's exciting to me,
So and like I said earlier, I don't necessarily have the gift of gab. I'm no politician, but talking about stuff like that is energizing, right?
Yeah.
It does get you excited because, hey, when I lived in Houston, that was never home for me either. That was the place you lived because that's where your paycheck was drawn.
Yeah.
You didn't live there. I don't know anybody that desires to live in Houston. I didn't desire to.
Either.
Yeah,
that's probably on purpose.
Yeah, actually, and while I was there, it was so funny because you brought it up. You say that you live in San Antonio, but you don't call it home. And I was the same way when I was in Houston. I never called Houston home. And actually, a good chunk of the people that were there, you didn't meet native Houstonians, right?
Yeah.
They were all from somewhere else. And so when you talk to them, that was always something that was clear too, that they weren't from there.
Yeah.
And I don't know that they necessarily desired to be there, because I didn't desire to be there. And but that's just where your paycheck was drawn, right? So that ended up being a temporary spot and of course some people end up being their permanent temporary spot. But for me, it truly was temporary. I couldn't wait.
Yeah.
It was kind of like owning a boat, right? The boat owner's best 2 days are the day you buy it and the day you sell it, right?
Yep,
and
you're exactly right.
I couldn't wait to get out of that place. And
It's funny. I told, if you ask Nina, if she were to ask me, let's say I'm going down south, I'm going to Live Oak County. If she asks me where I'm going and I tell her home, she knows exactly where I'm going. It's not to the house in Selma,
Right.
It's going to see my parents or going down south. And I've been gone 25 years, and that's still how we communicate. Is when I tell her I'm going home, she knows exactly where I'm going. It's a 2-hour drive.
there's a difference between I'm going to the house and I'm going home.
Exactly, the house and home. Yeah. No, you're exactly right, man.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this a little bit about you talked about tax reform. What are some of the things that a community can do, I guess, to fund some of this stuff without crazy new taxes?
Yeah, so right now it's difficult, right? So kind of the law of the land in the state of Texas is a property tax. Counties and cities have their sales tax in addition to those property taxes, and so right now there's really not much of an alternative. But I've already been speaking with some folks in Austin and folks that are running for positions in Austin that are serious about property tax reform with the ultimate goal of getting to zero property taxes.
Really?
That should be our goal, right? Because I'm not a fan of property taxes. I think property taxes are, it's nothing more than a wealth tax, and you're continuing to pay for something that you've already bought. So no matter whether you've paid for your property or not, you will continue to pay a property tax on that after it's paid off. Let's say you've worked 30 years to pay off your home. You will never not have a note due on that property because of what you've bought. And nothing else in your life is that way. Your car is not that way. Nothing else that you own, once it's paid for, do you have to continue to pay a tax on. Even your car, your registration, that's only so you can drive on public roads. But if you don't pay that registration, guess what? They don't come take your car.
Yeah.
But property tax is different. If you don't pay your property tax, you no longer own that property. It now becomes property of the county or of the state, and they can kick you out whether you've worked your whole life to pay for that or not. And I find it immoral almost, because it hits.
It's got to be rough on retirees.
Absolutely. So it probably hits the retired. Not that it doesn't impact
Sure.
everybody, but it impacts our retirees even more, because they've worked the longest to pay off that property, and now they're still stuck paying for it. And guess what's even worse? You do things, spend money to make improvements on your property, and guess what now happens? You
Your
pay
property
even more.
taxes go up.
Yep, it goes up even more because you've done things to improve your property. Say you live in town and you put in a shed in the back because you want a place to park your lawnmower, or have tool shed, or you put up a new fence. Well, now you've increased your property value with your hard-earned money to put things on your property to make it more useful to you, but it also increases your property value. So now you get taxed even further. I have major issues with that, and it does impact our older citizens more so than anybody else. And so we're working on. I've been working on helping at least create craft the starting points of some legislation to give folks or counties the opportunity to opt out. And I'm not naive enough to think that we're just money's just gonna appear to run the county business out of thin air. Something will have to take the place
Sure.
of that. I mean, it's an unfortunate reality of just life, that we're gonna have to pay some form of taxes to fund government.
Sure.
So, and it's what we've come up with thus far is gradually phasing out property taxes. It can't all be done just at the flip of a switch. It's something that's going to have to gradually be done over 5-10 years. And I think what you do is you end up phasing in a consumption tax, which impacts everybody, I think, more fairly than what a property tax does, because everybody participates in it.
Well, explain a little bit more about a consumption tax.
So
people know.
a consumption tax would be, I guess, very similar to what we already pay in sales tax. So it would be essentially an additional sales tax, but at a much lower rate. You can replace those countywide funds with a smaller property tax than what you're already paying now. But so you're going to get rid of property tax, or you're going to get rid of that bill that you get at the end of the year. And whether folks that rent say, well, I don't pay property tax. Well, you are. It's just a hidden tax, because your landlord isn't giving that to you for free.
Right.
If you live in an apartment complex or you live in a rent house, your landlord, whoever that may be, is paying property tax on that property.
He's just rolling into the fee that you're paying.
He's rolling that right into your rent, because believe me, that person's not giving that to you out of the goodness of their heart. They've got rental property, especially apartment complexes, that's a for-profit business. They're not just going to give you that property tax free of charge. So that's rolled in, and you're probably not only paying that property tax, but you're paying something in addition to that for an inconvenience fee that they're having to do. So folks in rental property are probably getting hit harder than people that outright own their property. So what a consumption tax would do is kind of distribute that property, or distribute that tax load across the entirety of the county through the goods and services that you buy within the county. So there would be an additional sales tax on the good or service you bought in town, but it would fall along the same lines as sales tax. So when you go to the grocery store, you're not taxed on a ton of food items that you're there, because those are essential items, and I think rightfully so. The government has wisely chosen to not tax the food that you buy, the gallon of milk that you buy is you're getting that tax free already. And I think this consumption tax would fall right in line with those same guidelines already in place, but it would add taxes to the other goods and services. You buy a car, you pay sales tax on that. Well, there would be a consumption tax on that on top of that. So it would help. Those taxes would go to replace the property tax that you already have now. So that, guess what? When you're when you're a retiree and you're living on a fixed income, you no longer have the burden of that property tax, and you can choose to participate in the tax system by what you consume. And a lot of our retirees probably aren't consuming as much as they used to because they no longer have kids at home.
Sure.
So the tax burden on that demographic in particular is significantly less, knowing that a property tax is being omitted from their yearly checkbook, right? So they are truly getting the biggest tax break of all the different groups. And if you hate grouping people in age brackets or whatever, but the retiree age group within Live Oak County and the rest of the state, should legislation like that pass, they're going to be impacted the most in a good way.
Yeah.
Right. So most of those folks are on fixed incomes. They're getting X amount from Social Security. They're getting X amount from, maybe they have a pension, maybe they had a 401k that they're able to draw down, but increased property taxes year after year, like mine has been, and probably most people listen to this. I've never had a property tax bill lower than the year before. Never. Yeah. So that continues to go up year after year, and that is pretty impactful to a ton of people out there. That when those, even if it's $10 or $15, that's still $10 or $15 more than what you paid last year. And we need to empower people to be able to choose how much they participate in that tax system.
Yeah. And I guess also, we talked a little bit about it earlier, but under a consumption tax like that, people come in from outside the community to purchase things in Live Oak County, in that area. They're also contributing to that fund through their consumption tax, even though they don't live in the area.
Right.
They're purchasing items in that area. That money's going into.
Right. So anybody that's driving through town and stops at the convenience store for fuel, and then they go in and buy stuff inside the convenience store, chips, Cokes, you name it, right? They would be contributing to our tax benefit. They would be contributing to help fund our county, just by the fact that they bought something in town. And then we would be doing the same when you bought something out of town too. You'd be, if that county chose to participate in that way. So I'm not even advocating at the state level that everywhere in the state of Texas has to do that. I'm advocating for, let counties make that decision for themselves. Some counties may say, we love our property tax structure, and we're going to continue doing that. Great, you can do that. I'm not saying everybody has to be molded in the way that I envision it, but I think there is something to be said by allowing a county to opt out and tax their citizens differently, because think about this. If Live Oak County no longer had property taxes, but our surrounding counties do, where would a business that wants to put in a multi-million-dollar facility that does, I'm just saying hypothetically, warehousing or anything else, where would they choose to put that business? In a place that has property taxes, or a place that has no property taxes, and they can save that money on their bottom line, right? So yes, in turn, they would be charging people that bought their good or service a nominal consumption tax, but that's not coming out of their bottom line, right? It's being paid for by the person choosing to participate in their good or service, whatever that is, whatever they're selling, So it gives Live Oak County,
it's a leg up
a leg up in creating business and creating jobs. So some of the stuff I've already talked about, they all kind of go hand in glove, right? So if you don't have safety and security within the county, some of this other stuff is almost irrelevant, right? So if people don't feel safe, you're not going to want to build a business or even build a life there. You're going to choose to go somewhere else. And so that impacts your economic activity, that impacts your tax base. So if you start from a position of we're a friendly community because we have great people, but we're also a business friendly community, only good things can come from that.
Well, like you said earlier, it's a matter of making a handful of decisions to really make it a different place because, the quality of people are there. Geographically, it's in a nice spot. There's just a handful of things that maybe could be changed to be a little bit better and really turn that area around, economically. So, and I think it's exciting, man. It's really exciting to hear it.
No, it's like I said, when you start talking about it, it starts kind of rolling off my lips. It does give you a spark of energy because the possibilities are endless, and that's what I see. The vision that I see for Live County is that the possibilities are endless for what we have the potential to do, because the people are there. We're situated in a great spot. There's no we're our only limiting factor, and if we can remove some of those barriers, we can make this county what we want of it as a collective. We can make what we want of our future.
Yeah. Well, man, I'm excited for you. I think once people get to know you a little bit better and hear where you're coming from and your vision for the future down there, I think people are going to really warm up to you. Like I said, I think you're the perfect guy for the job. And outside of just your personality, you being a family man and a good dude, and being smart with the way you do things and the way you handle your business, I think it's something that the county could really benefit from, And I'm not just saying that because you're my buddy, but I really do feel that way, and it's one of those things where, and I've said this multiple times, I have family there. I want to see it done. I want to see it run well. I want to see them be proud of the area they're from. They are, but, you can't go down there here recently without seeing that things are different. There's a lot of different people in the area that have come. Maybe, I guess it's from the oil field that have come and settled there, which is great, but to be able to see more familiar faces and be able to know that people are doing well, it's exciting, man. And I look forward to the election and the run, all that good stuff. I think you're going to do well. I think once people see the platform that you're running on and get to know you a little bit better, they're going to fall in love with you. So,
well, hey, thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely, man.
I know your time is valuable, and well, actually, not really. Your time's not valuable at all. But thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you giving me the chance to communicate to everyone in this forum. It gives everybody a little bit better chance to hear, I guess, in longer form, what I guess my thoughts of how I want to lead the county going forward, and I just can't thank you enough for giving me this opportunity. And again, like I announced last time, I am going to be starting my own podcast. Yeah. We spent some time today schooling me up on software and all that good stuff. So I've tentatively got my first guest lined up, which is our current county judge. Judge Huff has agreed to.
Oh, really? That's awesome.
Yeah. So he's agreed to be my first victim, so to speak, on this new podcast venture. He's I just think he has a story to be told. He's been our county judge since '87.
Really?
So yeah, and I'm excited to let people hear a little bit about his background, what led him into running for county judge, and some of the things that he thinks he's accomplished in his time at county judge, and it's going to be a good little interview, and I'm excited to be able to bring it to you. So we're setting up a time and date to make that happen, and I hope to have it out to folks soon so that they can hear his voice and what he's accomplished in his time at county judge. So I'm excited about that.
Well, I'm excited about that too. I'm excited about you starting your podcast, and I'll be honest with you. We live in a world of sound bites. So to be able to, the cool thing about this format is it allows you to have a little extra time, to really explain yourself, to really put yourself out there, for people to be able to hear from the horse's mouth and not just your cliche sound bites and things you're trying to put out. This is it's a conversation, And it's important that people are a part of that conversation. They may not be able to, you can't get everybody in a room with you and Jim Huff to listen to what you talk about, but you can put it out in this manner,
Right.
And I think that's awesome, man. I'm glad you're doing it. And I think it's going to help inform people also. It's going to let them know a little bit more about you, and it's going to make them a more informed voter. So excited for you, man.
Hey, thank you very much. Thanks, Gabe.
Thank you, brother. Y'all have a good day, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Gabe Molina Podcast.